House of Echoes, Part 1, The Move. It was supposed to be a fresh start for the Turner family. After years of city life, they were eager for a change, something quieter. They found it in the countryside, in a sprawling, old Victorian house that had stood vacant for years. The townsfolk were more than happy to sell it, and the price was a steal. Too good to be true, as they say. The Turners, Mark, his wife Claire, and their 2 children, Emily and Jack, arrived on a warm summer day. The house loomed over them, its dark windows like eyes watching their every move. Inside, it was dusty and filled with the kind of silence that only old houses possess. The wooden floors creaked underfoot, and the air was thick with the scent of age. Emily, the eldest, was the first to notice something off. She claimed she could hear voices, whispers that seemed to follow her through the house. Claire brushed it off as an overactive imagination, but Emily insisted. At night, she heard them clearer, soft murmurs, as if someone or something was speaking just out of earshot. One evening, as Emily was unpacking in her room, she heard the whispers again. This time, they were louder, more distinct. "Come play with us, ... They beckoned. She froze, her heart pounding. The voice was not her own, but that of a child, echoing through the walls. Downstairs, Mark found a box of old photographs in the basement. They were yellowed with age, but the faces were clear. A family of 4, standing in front of the house, their expressions grim. He recognized the house immediately. The family, however, was unfamiliar. He showed the pictures to Claire, who felt an unsettling chill run down her spine. That night, the whispers came for all of them. Emily woke to the sound of children laughing, a hollow, eerie sound that echoed through the halls. She crept out of bed, following the noise, and found herself at the foot of the attic stairs. The door creaked open on its own, revealing darkness beyond. "Come play with us," the voices urged. Terrified, Emily backed away, only to bump into someone. She spun around to see Jack, eyes wide with fear, staring up at the attic. "Do you hear them too?" he whispered. Claire and Mark were awakened by the sound of their children screaming. They rushed out of their room to find Emily and Jack standing at the bottom of the attic stairs, pale and trembling. Claire hugged them tightly, trying to soothe their fears, but the damage was done. Something was in the house with them, something old and hungry. As Mark comforted his family, he noticed something disturbing. The attic door, which they had always kept locked, was now slightly ajar, as if inviting them to discover what lay within. Part 2, The Discovery. The next day, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He spent the morning researching the history of the house, hoping to find some logical explanation for the strange occurrences. What he found was a story buried deep in the town's past. The house had once belonged to the Watson family, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. According to local legend, the children, a boy and a girl, were often seen playing near the attic windows. One night, they vanished without a trace, and the parents, grief-stricken, followed soon after. Some said they heard whispers in the night. Others claimed to see shadows moving within the walls. The house had been abandoned ever since, considered cursed by the townsfolk. Mark was disturbed but didn't want to worry Claire or the kids. However, that night, as they all sat down for dinner, the atmosphere grew heavy. The temperature dropped and the lights flickered. The whispers returned, louder this time, and the children's laughter echoed through the house. Suddenly, the chandelier above the dining table began to sway violently. Mark stood up to investigate When the lights went out completely, the room was plunged into darkness, and the whispers turned into shrill, inhuman screams. Emily and Jack clung to their mother, who was struggling to stay calm. Mark grabbed a flashlight from a drawer and turned it on, illuminating the room. The whispers stopped, and the house fell into an oppressive silence. But something was wrong. Emily was staring at the end of the hallway, her face white with terror. "Daddy, there's someone there," she whispered. Mark turned the flashlight towards the hallway, where the beam caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure standing at the foot of the attic stairs. It was a child, or at least, it looked like one. Its face was pale, and its eyes were dark pits. The figure reached out a hand, beckoning them to follow. Without thinking, Mark slammed the door shut, and the figure vanished. But the whispers returned, now coming from all directions, as if the house itself was speaking to them. That night, they all slept in the living room, too afraid to be alone. But even then, the house wouldn't let them rest. The whispers invaded their dreams, twisting their thoughts, filling their minds with dark images of the children who had once lived there. The next morning, Mark made a decision. They needed to leave, but as they packed their bags, they realized something horrifying. The house wouldn't let them go. The doors wouldn't budge. The windows were sealed shut, and the walls seemed to close in on them. They were trapped. Part 3. The final night. As night fell, the Turners knew they had to face whatever was haunting the house. The whispers had grown incessant, filling every corner of the house with their eerie chant. Join us, they urged, an invitation that felt more like a command. Mark took the lead, deciding to confront whatever was in the attic. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and sheer determination, he climbed the stairs, Claire close behind, holding the children's hands. The door to the attic opened on its own, revealing a room covered in dust and cobwebs. At the center stood an old, rotting crib, surrounded by broken toys and tattered clothes. As they stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind them, and the temperature plummeted. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening now. Mark shone the flashlight around the room, but the beam flickered and dimmed. The shadows seemed to move on their own, and the air grew thick with a sense of impending doom. Suddenly, the children's laughter echoed through the attic, and the crib began to rock on its own. Claire clutched the children tightly as the laughter turned to sobs, and then to screams. The room filled with the ghostly forms of the Watson children, their faces twisted in agony. "They want us to stay," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. "They're lonely." Mark shouted for them to leave, but the spirits grew angrier, their forms becoming more solid, more threatening. The room shook as the spirits lashed out, knocking over furniture and smashing the few intact windows. The whispers turned into screams, and the attic was filled with the sound of shattering glass and splintering wood. Just when it seemed the house would consume them, Emily stepped forward, her eyes locked on the crib. "They want their family," she said, her voice eerily calm. With that, she reached out and touched the crib. The spirits paused, their angry cries subsiding into soft murmurs. The room fell silent, and the oppressive weight lifted, if only slightly. "We need to help them," Emily continued. "We need to let them go." Mark, though hesitant, nodded. Together, they lifted the crib and carried it out of the attic, down the stairs, and out of the house. The front door, which had been locked tight, swung open as they approached. They carried the crib to the edge of the property, where the whispers faded into the night. As they set the crib down, the air around them grew still, The spirits of the Watson children appeared once more, but this time, their faces were peaceful. They reached out, not in anger, but in gratitude, before slowly fading away, their whispers finally silenced. The Turners left the house the next morning, not looking back. They never spoke of what happened, but they knew the House of Echoes would always haunt them, and as they drove away, they could have sworn they heard the faintest whisper, a final farewell from the children they had set free. And so, the house remained empty, waiting for the next family